welcome to River Lake Church. My name is Nick. I'm the pastor here. If you're watching online, I want to welcome you. Also, thanks for joining us on Facebook, our app. I want to introduce you to two of my favorite people. This is Ken and Annie Setzler. And some of you know them, some of you don't know them, but today is a big day in their lives, in the life of our church too, that Ken and Annie have been with us since day one, since the very first meeting that we had, and they have been influential. They serve in many different capacities, in many different ways, and do many different things. And this is their very last day of serving in our church. He got a great job offer that he took that's going to be better for him, his family, his future, and everything like that, and they're taking that. But I wanted them up here because I want to pray for them, but I wanted you to know them. Because this church, in so many ways, and them specifically, has built off the backs of our volunteers, the people that step up every single day, every single moment, say, yes, I'll serve. I'll do that. I'll step in. And especially Ken, more than most, Ken is, so many of you don't know him, Ken is actually in the tech booth, and he is in the tech booth almost every single weekend. And for the first, 2.5 years probably? 2.5 years, Ken Setzler was here before anybody else got here. He left after everybody else left, because the tech booth goes in last. And he did that every single weekend. He served yes, you should clap for that. Yes. So every time that you heard me clearly, it's because of him. And every time you didn't hear me clearly, it's Satan. We're just going to blame Satan, okay? It's not him. He did a great job. Ken would come in during the week when he was working. I don't know if his job knew that, but we're not going to tell them, so that's okay. But he would come in. He is the model in so many ways of what it means to be a part of River Lake and to serve at River Lake. And I'm going to tell you right now, our church would not be where it is without men and women like the Setzlers. They've done so much for our church, and we are going to miss them. There is a gap that you filled every single weekend. And I just want to tell you one story, because again, it's his heart, and I'll never forget this. It's when we were at 2 services and we were full. And I was struggling with, do we go to 3? Because let's be honest, 3 services is a long day. We're going to get ready to start in 3 services again. It's kind of normal for us right now, but at that time, it was a struggle. And he was the only guy. So I asked him, I said, hey, what do you think about this? And that previous weekend, we had 15 people baptized. And I'll never forget it. He was driving me. We drove into work together on Sundays. And he just paused and said, Nick, listen, if me being here an extra hour and a half every single week leads to more people finding and following Jesus and discovering them, how can I say no to that? And he stepped up and served. And again, so many of you are here today because of the experience that you got to experience, because he, week in and week out, whether he was sick, whether he was happy, whether he wanted to. I know he didn't want to every weekend. I'm pretty sure he told me some of those weekends that he didn't want to be here. But both of them, their commitment to Jesus, to this church, and to you is amazing. And we're going to miss them, and I just wanted to bring them up here because so many of you don't know them, and I wanted you to know them because you're here because of them. You're here because they serve. And it's a big deal. So would you join me in praying for them as they get ready to transition to a new phase in their life? Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this family, for what they do, what they've done. Lord, for their sacrifices, relationally, financially, just with their time. God, thank you. Thank you that they just filled in the gaps. And I pray that you would raise up men and women to replace them, but also as they leave, that you would be with them, that you would go before them, that you would bless their new journey, that you would bless them in their new church and their new friendships and their new jobs and their new situations. Lord, bless them abundantly because they were faithful. They were faithful in the small, and their results were huge in this world, in our church, and in their family. Thank you so much. We love Jesus. Amen. Love you, buddy. So with that said, we're going to take up spots for volunteering. Who'd like to volunteer now? Just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. No, we've got one other announcement I want to walk through, and then we're going to get in the message this morning, and it really is our Bold update. It's our Bold initiative. If you're new, our Bold initiative really was our building campaign that we started back in March and late February, early March, and I just want to kind of update you where we're at. I'm committed to updating you once a month, and so where we're at is this. We've signed contract with the building. Many of you know that. We're in the process of getting our financing, and there's two kind of things that we're in the middle of right now. One is, hopefully the next week and a half, we're going to be able to finally decide on an architect and a firm so that we can start to move forward in plans. We've got some things that are kind of being held up by that, and we've been talking to many different companies, many different architects, and we've kind of narrowed it down to about 3 or so, and hopefully the next week and a half we're going to get that, and as soon as we get plans, I will show them to you. We've got some preliminary stuff, and it's exciting, but I just wanted you to know we're in the middle of that. And the second thing is this. We're in the middle of talking to banks. We've got 3 banks we're talking to right now, and there's a whole bunch of different range of options that we're walking through and really trying to pick the best one, because we've got some banks that want guarantors to kind of partner with us and kind of secure that. We've got some banks that want big down payments, and we understand that. And really, as I told one person, it's not comparing apples to apples for us. It's really comparing apples and coconuts and bananas. And it's so different. And so what I want to ask of you is this. Please continue to pray for us. I joke all the time, but there were no seminary classes on how to deal with bankers, and I think I know why, because I don't think we'd ever join. I think it'd be like, oh, no, I can handle the Jesus part, I can't handle the bank part. You know, it's kind of crazy. So please continue to pray for us as we make decisions that really, I feel in some ways, so many ways, inadequate to make, and yet we've got to make them, and we're trying to be the best stewards and the best servants of you and the vision we have for this church. All that to say, it's exciting. God's doing great things. I think we're really close to getting some stuff done and in turn getting our first home and being able to just really do some incredible things in this city. So keep praying for us. It's a great journey. So with that said, hey, I want to pray one more time, and then we're going to jump right into the text this morning. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your word that we get to read and study every single week. Thank you for the life that you lived. Thank you that you were the servant, that you modeled for us what it looks like to be a servant leader. Help us serve each other. Help us serve the Big C church, whether it be here or in another church. Help us be who you've called us to be. We love you. We thank you so much. Amen. Well, today we're starting to wind down in a series called This Is What We Do. And we started this series because what we've said from day one is, hey, everybody talks about what they believe. If you go to a nonprofit organization, you go to churches, you go to business, they always talk about what we believe. But if you're like me, you've discovered that what people do communicates what they value way more than what they say. And so we doing this series, not telling you, hey, what we say and just say, hey, we say this, but what we do, because I believe what we do communicates what we value more than just what we say. And so we're in the middle of this series, and today I want to talk about a very specific moment in my life that I remember, that some of you probably remember, that really had a big impact, but it didn't start out that way. Really quickly, 1986, how many people remember what happened with the Challenger space shuttle? Anybody? Yeah. How many people remember where they were at, what they were doing the whole day? It was a big deal. Yeah, that's it right there. That's the Challenger. When I was a child, when I was 7 years old, or 8 years old, somewhere around there, 7 or 8. I lived in Florida. I was a short distance away from them, and we actually got to watch those things. I've been to the Cape and got to see them live very, very close, and from my house, you could actually look out and kind of watch them, and it was a small little speck. You couldn't really see much, but that was what you did in Florida if you were close enough. You'd walk out, and I remember this day particularly because that was the first time that a teacher was going up. And because there was a teacher, the schools were abuzz, and we were in school that day, and I remember we went outside for recess early on, and the whole school was outside, and we were going to stand there and watch the shuttle go up. And I got to be honest, I would love to say that I stood there like a good little 7-year-old and went, I didn't. I don't remember anything about it really too much. I remember being outside, but I was 7, and so I'm pretty sure I was playing in the dirt, or I punched somebody, or something else like that. I don't remember much about that moment. And even if you could see it, we were so far away, you really couldn't see it blow up. You could just kind of see it, and kind of just there's a white kind of line. What I do remember is this. I do remember the stories and the reports. I do remember going home that night and it being on the news. I do remember seeing it over and over again. And I do remember beforehand really wanting to grow up and be an astronaut. I had posters and pictures. And after that, Not so much. It was a different career change for me. I was like, maybe not that, I do remember it being a big deal. And what happened was, if you know much about it, is this thing right here, one of these, it's not this exact one and probably not this exact size, but it's called an O-ring. And if you know much about what happened, it's so fascinating to me. Because I believe what happened with this really happens to us. See, in the process leading up to this launch, this O-ring failed almost every time. In fact, it failed so much, they came up with a term and actually a science behind it called the standardization of deviation. That what happened was the shuttle would go up, it would take launch, and this would fail, but nothing bad would happen. And it would go up again, and this would fail, and nothing bad would happen. And it would go up again, and this would fail. And they coined this term, the standardization of deviation, meaning that the new standard became, it was okay for this to fail. It was okay for this not to perform the way that it was designed to perform because nothing bad happened. There's a deviancy with which how this was made and designed to perform, but it was okay when it was deviated from how that was because nothing bad happened. And if you look at the shuttle that day, if you understand it, it's huge. I've got to stand right next to it again. I went to the Cape one time. I got to be very, very close with it. And it is a massive, it is a large, it is big in nature. And that day, all the checks, all the functions, all the time was like, hey, is the fuel's big, there's a large amount of fuel in it. Is the fuel okay? Yeah, fuel's good. Are the rockets okay? Rockets good. Are the humans inside? Can they breathe okay? That's good. They went through all the big things that they thought couldn't fail, that shouldn't fail. They walked through all those. They checked all those. But this small, insignificant, what was deemed, and I'm pretty sure it probably cost a little bit more than that, but this insignificant 70-cent throwaway part, they didn't check it because it was small and it was insignificant. And there was a standardization of deviation. And you know what? Even if it failed, it's no big deal. Until it was. Until this day, it did fail, like it had failed before. And yet this day was different than any other day in the sense that the whole thing blew up. All because, over time, they looked at something that they deemed as small and insignificant, and they said, you know what, there's a deviancy within it. It deviates whether it works or not, and it doesn't work all that much, but you know what, because it doesn't have a negative effect, because it doesn't blow anything up, because it's never failed in such a way to cause harm, we're just not going to pay much attention to it. And today, I want to talk about that. Because here's what I know about your life and my life. We've all had things blow up, right? We've all had things that were like cataclysmic. We've all had things that kind of blew up, and the temptation is to sit back and think, you know what, yeah, that was a bad day. The temptation is to look at this and go, wow, something went terribly, terribly wrong. But if you trace it back far enough, if you trace what happens back far enough, and I was talking to somebody who's much, much smarter than me a few minutes ago about this, and there's been studies done. There's been a whole science behind this kind of concept of the standardization of deviation that really, this moment, you can trail it back to a whole bunch of what are seemingly small and insignificant failures that led to a cataclysmic moment, much like in your world and your friend's world. Because again, there are things that you put up with. There are deviations from how you were made that you put up with, right? And you blow them off. That for some people, it was a thought process about another person other than your spouse, and you went there. And again, it didn't lead to anything. Like you thought about them, you fantasized about them, what it'd be like to be married to them or be with them or, not be with whoever, whatever it is. And you thought about it, and nothing negative happened. And so it was okay. And it wasn't a big deal. And you thought about it, 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 and you justified it. You said, hey, it's never going to happen. I'm never going to do anything. And she doesn't even notice me, and he doesn't even go to the gym anymore, and the whole deal. And you thought about it and thought about it. And listen, for some people in this room, you're not married to a person anymore. Like it started as a very, very small, what a seemingly insignificant thing. And yeah, you kind of knew it wasn't right, and yeah, you knew it was kind of a deviation from where, kind of how God made you and how you were supposed to be, but, it had never caused any problems beforehand, so you just kind of kept going down that path. Until one day your marriage blew up. Or maybe it was your finances. That again, it was a small, kind of insignificant thing, and you got a credit card, and you were going to be good, and you were always going to pay it off the next month, and you were never going to carry a balance, and you were never going to go over that. Except that one moment, that 1 month, And you were going to have the money the next month. And you knew you couldn't quite afford it, but you could afford the payments and the whole deal. So you had a small decision to make, and you made it, and you ran that credit card once. And you were okay. But for some in here, your story is you ran that credit card once. It was a small moment. It was a small thing, and it deviated from a value that it had. It deviated from who you think you are and what you stood for, and yet a few years later, you're $15,000, $20,000 in credit card debt, and everything's blown up. And you can do this for all things. Maybe it was just gossip. I mean, come on, everybody talks about everybody. Everybody badmouths. Everybody shares information. Hey, did you hear about so-and-so? And I heard he did, and I heard she went, and I heard blah, 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 a whole deal. And everybody kind of does that, and it's not a big deal, and nobody's perfect. And again, we just kind of look at it, and you've talked about people, and it's not blown up in your past. And so again, much like this little O-ring kind of deal, you just kept doing it until one day they do find out, and they do hear about it, and just whole world's blown up. Best friends are gone. Relationships are destroyed. Why? Because a seemingly small, insignificant comment, a throwaway comment maybe, that was said negative about a friend or coworker or a staff member you work with or whatever that is, your spouse, it got back to him. And the first 15 times you made that joke, there was no problems. The first 15 times that you had that cheap meal that you just thought, oh, it's not a big deal, and I'm just going to eat this, and I'm really serious about getting in shape, and I'm really serious about going here, and I'm really serious about getting healthy, and I'm really serious about this. But, it's just one moment, it's just one thing, and one small moment. There's a temptation for every single one of us to standardize that. There's a temptation for every single one of us to sit back and go, hey, I'm going to try this. I know it's not right. And then instead of looking at the standard, which is Jesus and God, and going, yeah, that was wrong, I got to stop that. We look at the outcome and go, you know what, nothing bad happened to it. It didn't blow up. The rockets didn't blow up. The thing's okay. I've done it 5 times, and the thing's failed every time. But you know what? Everything's fine. You know what? I'm good with it. What's the worst that can happen? And again, every single person in here, you've had things blow up. You've had health scares. You've had relationship scares. You've had job scares. You've had financial scares. You've had things blow up. And if you're honest, and I'm honest, it's not the moment that caused the problem. See, he agrees. Yeah. Right. No, yes. Don't argue now, man. Come on. Staying with me. Come on. I love kids. All right. It's the moment. It's the moments before the moment. It's the thing. It's the deviation from who you are, who you were made, or who God designed you to be. It's the deviation from that you just kind of standardized and said, oh, it's not a big deal, and so it's not going to affect anybody. It's not going to harm anybody. It's when you did that all of a sudden, one day down the road, it just blew up. Because this is what I want to talk about. We've got a whole core value built around this. Our core value number 2 is this. We will focus on the small to produce the big. Because we believe small details matter. We believe small things. And this has a positive and a negative impact. That the small things that we do that are right produce big things that are right. And you know that, okay? You get that. Listen, I'm gonna spend 15 minutes with a God every single day for the next year. That's gonna have it's a small change, gonna have a big impact. You can read the Bible in a year. If you just spend 15 minutes reading the Bible. Could you imagine for a second, just pause real quick? Could you imagine if you just took 15 minutes a day? Not a big chunk, not 3 hours of studying, not 45 minutes of prayer, not this big change. No, if you just make a small change. If you just spend 15 minutes a day reading the Bible every day for a year, you do the whole thing. You do that 3 years in a row. Read the Bible three straight times through. How many people have done that? Don't raise your hand if you had. We don't like you. No, I'm just kidding. It's a small thing. We will focus on the small because we believe, we know, we've seen. The small produces the big. But the flip side's true, isn't it? The small produces the big. That the negative things in your world, the things that you know you shouldn't do, the places you know you shouldn't go, the thoughts that you know you shouldn't think, the conversations you know you shouldn't have, the jokes you know you shouldn't tell, the places that you know you shouldn't visit, the people you know you shouldn't hang out with, the negative things in your life, they seem insignificant, they seem small, and the reason that they do that is because they have no immediate negative effect until they do, and by that point, it's too late. By that point, you've cheated. By that point, you're in too much debt. By that point, everything's messed up, and it's too late. It's no longer insignificant. It's no longer small to undo. It is big. It's a whole different world. And so today I want to look at two verses, really just two small verses that kind of talk about this and talk about where we're at. Where we're at, what I believe it means for you personally, because again, we've said the whole time that every one of these core values, I hope you adopt them as yours. I hope you adopt them for your family, for you, because I believe they're applicable in so many different ways. But also for us as a church. And the first one is we got to get rid of a myth. The first thing is Jesus is talking, and he's talking about money. And we're not going to talk about money today, so you can relax a little bit, okay? I didn't set you up, okay? But he's talking about money in this context. And there is a myth that I believe, and you probably believed at some point in time in your life, that you know what? If I had more, if I had lots of something, then I would behave differently than if I had less. And Jesus is talking to a crowd, and he says, this is so fascinating to me. We're going to put it up on the screen. He says in Luke chapter 16, he says, whoever, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. Jesus comes out. He says, hey, you believe a myth that so many people believe. I believe a myth that so many people believe. And in this context, he's talking about money. He says, listen, there's a whole bunch of people that they really believe the myth. And you know what? If we had more money, we could give more money. Jesus is like, no, you wouldn't. In fact, every study ever done about money and giving says that statement's true. That in fact, the more people make, the less they give. Jesus says, this whole is so fascinating, so important. He says, you are who you are. That it's you behave in a way not because of what you have or what you don't have, but because of the character with which you possess. And it has zero to do with whether you have money or not. I run into people who sit back and they'll say, Nick, I'm trying for the Powerball lottery. You know, if I win, I'm going to give 10% to the church. I'm thinking, no, you're not. You don't give 1% now. Like, shut up. You're not going to. I mean, we'll gladly take it, okay? I don't say that out loud. I just think it, okay? So, you know, anybody who wants to give their lottery winnings, we'll gladly accept that, all right? But I just believe this. You are who you are. Your character does not change depending on how much or how little you have. But again, we believe that myth. If I had more money, I'd give more. If my spouse was like their spouse, I'd have been faithful. I'd be nicer. My wife is so mean. My husband is so cold. If my spouse was like their spouse, then I'd be a better spouse. If I had more kindness in my world, if I was loved more, if I was accepted more, then I would give more. And Jesus says, no, you don't understand. You are who you are. It's not based on your stuff. It's not based on your circumstances. It's based on your character. And he says, if you want to grow, that's not a definitive statement of like you are who you are and you can't change it, but it is you are who you are, and stuff and situations will not change it. The only thing that will change it is if you grow your character. Your bank account will not grow you. Your character will grow you. And here's the crazy part, because we want to sit and wait for it to happen. We want to sit back and go, I'll give more, or I'll serve more, or I'll be nicer. I'll be a better friend if I had better friends, okay? But you can't keep two friends. You got like the new best friend every single month. And on Facebook, you talk about it, and everybody else is going, oh, my goodness, how long is this going to last, you know? Because you're a bad friend, but you sit back and talk about how you can't find a good friend. It's because you gossip and you lie and you slander and you do a whole bunch of other stuff. In your business, you don't have great employees, but because you don't treat your employees great. And there's this chicken and egg kind of deal. A lot of treat my employees great, you know, if they behave great. And the employees are sitting back going, oh, I'd behave great if they treat me great. And it's a whole deal. You have not because you have not performed. Jesus says, you are who you are. Has zero to do with your situation. But again, if you're like me, it's so easy. It's so easy to blame our circumstances and believe the myth and believe the lie. That you know what? If I had more time, I would volunteer at the local Boys and Girls Club. I'm on the board of local Boys and Girls Club. Love the Boys and Girls Club. It's an amazing program. But if I had more time, I would volunteer down there. Those kids need that. I just don't have enough time. Jesus is like, no, that's not the issue. Everybody got the same amount of time. You are who you are. And it's not different for anybody else. So let me just ask you the question. What is it in the last month? What is it? Maybe in the last couple months or whatever, maybe you had a conversation with your spouse. Maybe you even outwardly said, if I had more blank, then I could do, or then I could be, or then I could spend, or whatever. What is it that maybe up until the last few moments you really believe the myth, the lie, that you know what, more would actually change my behavior? Because I'm telling you right now, it's not what I'm saying, it's what Jesus is saying. He's saying, you are who you are. And if you want more, you've got to change your behavior first. You've got to change your character, and you can change that. But your circumstances aren't going to change who you are. This is such an important part. Because what happens is this applies both positive and negative, but what I want to say is this. For many of us, we don't take this seriously when it comes to sin. We don't take churches, and listen, if you're here, it's your first time here, man, it's a little bit different day for us, and I try to inspire and motivate and whatever, but we believe in sin. You might not call it sin, you might call it a mistake, you might call it a bad weekend, you might call it a bad season, I don't know. You might call it just like, I disagree with myself, I don't know if there's a God or whatever, but we kind of believe in that, and here is the problem, I believe, in churches. Here's the problem in the world, that listen, let me ask you really quickly, if you went to the doctor, had your checkup, your 5-year checkup, your yearly, whatever that is, you walk in. Doctor says, hey, you need to have a seat. Everything's great. You're fine. Nothing to be worried about. I just want to let you know really quickly, there is a little bit of cancer in your brain. We're not going to do anything about it. I think you're perfectly healthy. Nobody's perfect. It's all good. Just go about your business. Don't even think about it. How many of you walk out of that office thinking, cool? Anybody? Yeah. How many of you walk out of that office thinking, I need a new doctor? Yeah. All the smart people, at least, or, you know. You know why? Because you know there's no such thing as a little cancer. There's no such thing. That cancer, and it affects every single one of us in here in some way, whether directly or indirectly, whether it be with you or with family members or whatever. Cancer is this thing that is constantly eating away, and there's no such thing as a little cancer. You don't play with that. And the problem in the church today is that we take cancer more serious than we do sin. The problem in the world today is we sit back and we go, nobody's perfect, and everybody's got a little sin, and everybody's got a little issue, and nobody, come on, I'm just sleeping with them, or I'm just going there, or you know what, I spend my money over here, and nobody's perfect, I probably shouldn't, but I just eat too much, and that's not a big deal. I mean, the worst thing that I do is I do that, everybody has their issues, and we blow them off, and we sit back, and we treat them exactly like this O-ring, we treat them exactly like we just standardize the deviancy in our world. You'd never do that with cancer. Because we understand, we see it every single day. It kills. But with sin, you just blow it off. It's because we're more scared of what's going to kill our physical bodies than what's going to kill our souls. We're more terrified about what's going to wreck us right here and now in this temporal world than we are about what's going to wreck us for eternity, and we miss that. We look at the small, we look at the insignificant, and we blow it off and go, well, you know what, it's not that big of a deal. And I'm just telling you right now, it's a huge deal. It's a massive deal. That the small always produces the big. And I don't know what's in your world. I don't know what you're blowing off. I don't know what you've just kind of made your peace with, and you said, listen, no one's perfect, and I know I probably should be in church more, or I know I probably shouldn't go there. I know I probably shouldn't hang out with them. I know I probably just, I don't know what you justify, what you kind of walk away from, whatever. I have no clue what that is. I don't have to know. Here's what I know. It's serious. And just because it hasn't blown up yet, just because you've been able to get away with it, you've had a scare too, you've almost got caught, you've almost got kind of messed up with it, just because you haven't had it blow up yet doesn't mean it won't. Because at some point it will. Because the small always produces the big. Now, that's the negative. I'm going to spend the rest of our time talking about the positive. Because just as much as the small produces the big from a negative standpoint, it also is a positive standpoint, right? I mean, you can do some stuff. You can do some small changes, some small insignificant adjustments in your world, and you can standardize something that really wasn't who you are. You can change some stuff in your world that you'd say, listen, that's not really my personality. I'm not really organized. I'm not really disciplined. I'm not really kind of focused. You can change some stuff that can become standardized. You can kind of do that. But there is a roadblock that is before us with the good things that is not before us with the bad things. There is a tension that we struggle when it's a positive thing, when it's a positive small thing in our life, that we do not struggle with when it's a negative thing in life. And it's kind of summed up in this passage in Zechariah chapter 4:10. And up to this moment, Zechariah, they were rebuilding the temple. And if you know anything about the history of the Israelites, they had a huge, massive, magnificent temple. I mean, it was just massive. It was beautiful, overlaid with gold and silver, and had a whole bunch of stuff and waterfalls, and just, it was crazy. Whole nation got taken over. Temple was destroyed. They were scattered. And we pick it up, where they come back and they're starting to rebuild the temple. And in some of the earlier chapters, we're not going to read it today, but in some of the earlier chapters, it says as they looked at the rebuilding process, they wept. And some scholars, not too many, but some scholars believe that they looked at it and they wept because when they saw it, they were so overjoyed that they were rebuilding the temple. Most scholars, and this is where I would land, believe that they wept because they saw the temple being built. They saw the insignificance, the small beginnings, these kind of small rocks, the small size, the small stature of the building. And they were thinking, how far have we fallen? It blew up on us. We had it all. We had a great nation. We had all the power. And listen, we didn't take it seriously, and it is all blown up. It is all gone. And now we're left to pick up the pieces and start again. They just wept. But as they're finishing the building, this verse, so fascinating to me. Zechariah 4:10 says this. God's speaking. He says, who dares despise the day of small things? Since the seven eyes of the Lord that are arranged throughout the earth will rejoice when they see the chosen capstone in the hand of Zerubbabel. When the moment when Zerubbabel has that capstone and finishes the temple, God is speaking to his nation and says, who dares despise small beginnings? It has to start somewhere. The rebuilding, the repair process has to start somewhere. And there's a tension for you and there's a tension for me to despise small beginnings. Right? There's a tension for us to look at how in shape or out of shape that we are and think, you know what, I don't need to go back. That, you know what, I'm so out of shape and it doesn't matter and I can't even do a push-up and I can't even go down the thing and I'm going to look silly and my clothes don't fit and I got to get up early. You know what, if I was already in shape, it'd be fine, but I'm not going to go there. You know what? I know I need to save money. I know we're living a paycheck to paycheck. I feel it every single month. I feel like it's about ready to blow up. And, I'm just praying that the air conditioner doesn't go out. I'm just praying that the car doesn't break down. Okay, I know I probably should save, but, we could only save $25, $50 a month. And so, you know what? What's the big deal? Because you save $25 a month. I mean, that's such a small, insignificant amount. What's that going to do at the end of the year? What'd you say, $300? No, it's small beginnings. We're not going to do that. I'm better than that. Let's just forget it. I know I should have a better marriage with my wife, and, I probably should pray a little bit more with her or even for her, but, we're so far apart, we're so broken, it's already blown up, and, I can't even think about how to repair that. I can't even think about how to fix that. It's just better, just forget it. But what we miss is this. The blessing that we want comes after the beginning. The blessing always comes after the beginning. In fact, we're going to put it up this way. The blessing we desire comes after the beginning we despise. Every single time. The blessing that you want, I don't know what it is. I don't know where you're at. I don't know whether you want a better relationship with God. I don't know if you want a better relationship with a spouse. I don't know if you want a spouse and you're not. I don't know if you don't want a spouse. You've got one. You don't want one. I don't know where you're is. That's not a blessing, by the way. That's just a comment. Anyway, I don't know where you're at. What I know is every single person in here, if I poll you, there's blessings that you'd be like, yeah, and I do one thing. This would be better. I'd have a better job. I'd have a better bank account. I'd have a better, relationship. Be healthier. I have a blessing I want. The problem is, and we miss this, the blessing you desire comes after the beginning. You despise. I don't want to start that. I don't want to go there. I'm starting over. Are you kidding me? It's like, man, it's just so much trouble. I don't want to start over with my kids. They're grown. They're gone. We've just drifted away. I don't want to start over my marriage. I don't want to start over. See how insignificant that temple looks? I don't want to start over. Yeah, I would love to have this. I'd love to have more money in the bank account. I'd love to go deeper. I'd love to have a better relationship with God, but Nick, you don't understand. I have walked so far away from Him. I'm too far. I don't want to go there. I don't want to feel like I got to start over again. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you right now. The small, every time, produces the big. And that should be so encouraging to you. Because wherever you're at, in whatever area you're at, the blessing does come. But it's going to come after you taking that first step towards it. It's going to come after you start it. And you get up tomorrow and you go, no longer. No longer am I walking away from God. No longer am I walking away from my marriage. No longer am I walking away from my financial future. I'm not going to stick my head down in the sand and just pray that it doesn't happen. I'm going to start walking towards something. I'm going to start building something. I'm going to start focusing on the small, seemingly insignificant. Because I know one day it's going to produce the big. So the second question I got for you today is this. What positive thing do you need to do? Okay, so there's some sin, there's some negative things in your world that you need to cut out, that you need to start taking seriously, you need to get away from, you need to run away from as fast and far as possible. And you need to treat it like cancer. But there are some positive things. Some things that you need to start doing. Some things that you despise, and you might not even use the word despise, but you would say things like, I don't want to start that, and I've tried that before, and I went down that path before, and it didn't work out, and I don't want to go there again, and I'm too far gone, you just don't understand. You got all these excuses. What thing do you need to start doing? Whether it's you need to start making church a priority, whether it's you need to start saving, whether it's you need to start praying with your spouse. I'll tell you right now, if you don't pray with your spouse, you're missing out. It's hard. And actually, I'll tell you, I've done a lot of marriage counseling. I've yet to run into the couple who were in marriage counseling with me, but came back and said, yeah, no, but Nick, we pray together every single night. It's a small thing. And again, it's easy for you to blow it off, and for some of you today, you're going to blow it off. You're going to walk out and go, yeah, I can do other things. It's so small, so insignificant. How's that going to affect anything else? It's a big deal. Because if you're praying together, you're probably talking. If you're talking, you're probably communicating. If you're communicating, you're probably communicating what's going on and what you're struggling with and the whole deal. It's a small thing. Produces big results. What do you need to do? As a church, as I said, we believe this. We live this out. I want to share with you in our remaining time what that looks like for us and how we live this out and why we think this is so important. So number one is this. We have a color. A lot of you probably didn't know we have a color. We have an official River Lake color. It's 0099FF. Means nothing to anybody, right? Like, oh, I was waiting for blue or purple. It's a blue, but it's 0099FF. That's our hexadecimal color. That's what we have. That's everything that we do is that color. Why? Makes it simple. Nick, what color should I make that? 0099FF. It's already decided. Done. We have our own font. All of your giving statements, for all eternity probably, will have the same font on them. We have the same font. We have the same thing. We focus on the small. You should have had mints in your chair when you got in there. There were mints here every single weekend. We spend probably too much money on mints. You know why? I'll tell you why. This is probably going to be crazy for some people. It's probably going to be insignificant for some people. But I was reading some stuff, and we did some research and discovered that, you know what? The sense of smell is closely tied, more than anything else, to your sense of memory. And I want every single time that you smell that mint or you taste that mint for you to think about this church and hopefully have a positive experience. Because my hope is, my prayer is that some people who come here regularly and fall away, because that's what happens, right? All of us, we fall away at some point in time. That somewhere around them hands them a piece of gum or hands them a mint, and they taste it, and it just brings them right back. And God speaks to them through that. It's a small little detail. In fact, somebody thought it'd be funny to put different mints in the mint tray one day. It was not, okay? I didn't find it funny at all. I threatened to fire them. It's so important to us, we actually had a collection of 10 people get together and do a taste testing for the mints. I lost, by the way. So if you're ever like, I don't like the mints, neither do I. So anyway, it's just, not that I'm bitter, but anyway. Small produces the big. I talked last week about our t-shirts. This is so cool. I got a text message about these small little details, these t-shirts and what we spend money on and things like that. And somebody texted me and said, hey, Nick, you're never going to believe what happened. I was walking up, and I walked up to somebody, and I'm kind of newer in the church, and I don't know everybody, and they had a River Lake Church t-shirt on. And so I walked up to them and was like, hey, how long you been going to River Lake Church? And their comment was, oh, I don't go to that church. But this shirt is so comfortable, I wear it all the time. And I'm like, win, okay? That person's advertising for us all over town. Why? because we had some drop down, drag out, throw down arguments about t-shirts. Because the small produces the big. And I've even got other pastor friends who are like, Nick, you spend some time on some weird stuff. And I'm like, I do. You know why? Because I believe it produces results. I believe if we want to be unlike anyone else, we've got to be unlike anyone else. And we got to spend our time doing things unlike anyone else. In fact, Craig Groeschel's got a quote. I want to put it up here really quickly. It says this: it's often the small things that no one sees, the behind the scenes, the arguments, the conversations, the decisions, the books you read, the things you talk about, the small things that no one sees that result in the big things everyone wants. As a church, we're growing, we're impacting. You know why? We're not really much different than any other church in the town. I mean, I like to stand up here and say, hey, we're really, really different. I think we are in some ways, but we have a sermon and 3 songs and an offering and communion and the whole, we focus on the small things. The small little details that many of you may not even notice, the sight lines of where posters are and where they're not and where pipe and drape is. We have, I think, over 1,000 feet of pipe and drape that we strategically put up every single weekend. We have so many different things. Nobody really even notices until it's not there, because we believe the small produces the big. A few more. Parking team, follow-up, postcards, weekly staff meetings. One of the big ones we do, just going to own this, we borrow other churches' graphics and videos all the time. You know why? Because I think great graphics and great videos are really, really important. And we don't have the money to pay for a great graphic artist and great video person. So you know what I do? Almost on a weekly basis, I'm always looking for stuff, and I'm emailing going, hey, that was an amazing series. Can I have that? And they're like, yeah. We don't use their content. I will straight up borrow / steal, whatever you want to say with that. You know, if it's good, I'll take it. Matter of fact, let me just tell you right now, this is what we do. I didn't come up with that. That was a series that a church did about money. Again, I didn't want to talk about money. I wanted to talk about what we believe, what we do. I just took it and changed it. But the graphics were great. And the countdown video was money. I was like, can I borrow that? Why? Because I don't want clip art up here. Because I want you to walk in and be proud. Because I want videos that are engaging and funny and heart-moving. Because it's small. All these elements, all these moving pieces, they produce a big, big result. Last thing that I'll say is this. Our series, we spend a lot of time on our series. I talked last week about how there's a difference between explanation and preparation, and how we prepare starting with God, but we explain, and we don't start with the Bible, we don't start with God. I did a whole thing with that. In our series, we spend a lot of time. Matter of fact, we spend hours upon hours upon hours upon hours upon hours writing the content, putting things together, coming up with the layout. I'm not even going to tell you that. We just spent a lot of time doing what I would call weird work that normal people don't do. Why? Because it's important. And we got a series coming up called Shift. Shift. It's all about going to that next level in your relationship with God, in your relationship with others. It's a completely different spiritual, out of this world kind of level. It's a lot like, how many people have ever seen Harry Potter, right? Like Harry Potter lives in the real world, and then all of a sudden he gets on a train, and the train kind of shifts gears and whatever. He's like in Hogwarts and stuff, okay? I've never read the book, but I hope that's right, okay? So I'm just kind of making that up, you know. But you go to Hogwarts, it's a different level, it's a different thing, it's a whole big deal. That's a bad illustration, wasn't it? Anyway, I'm trying. We're doing a series, though, called Shift. I want to encourage you, make a commitment to be here. Make a commitment to be here in 2 weeks as we start that series. I really believe it can change your life. Whether you believe in God or not. Whether you want to walk out and go, hey, I'll take the principles. I don't know any of the Jesus stuff. Hey, come on, we'll take it. It's going to change you. It's going to be amazing. And I don't say that a lot. But in 2 weeks, you need to make a decision. I'm going to be here for the start of that series. And the second thing I want you to do is this. I asked you last week to start praying for people. I want you to start inviting people. And here's why that's important. I'll wrap it up, I promise. A small invite can have a big result. A small invite. Matter of fact, some of you are here because somebody flippantly looked at you and said, hey, you got to check out my church. Or somebody flippantly went share on their Facebook, and they didn't spend 10 seconds on that. It was just kind of a small little thing. But you're here now. And you're different, and God's working in you. It's incredible, and you're so glad, so thankful for this church. Why? It wasn't some big gesture. Somebody would walk up to you and be like, hey, I've been watching you, and I've seen a lot of sin in your life, and I think you need Jesus, and I would like to talk to you about the justification of your soul and how that, I mean, nobody did that. I don't think they did. If they did, I want to hear that story, actually. But that's not really how it works. No. Many of us are here because of a small invite that had a big result. And I'm asking you to play your role. I'm asking you to continue to pray for the people that you should invite that need to hear this series. And I don't know who they are. You are uniquely positioned, like no one else, to reach who God has positioned you to reach, that no one else can. But would you start to do some small invites? Would you start to take the small seriously? To not try to continue and focus just on the big and, oh, I got to do this, and it can't be big, can't be great. You know, just like, no, just be faithful in the small. Because you are who you are. It's not about your stuff. It's not about your situations. I want to invite our ushers to come forward for our time of communion. There is this temptation, I think, for all of us, as we walk, to kind of discount where we're at. To, again, look at our circumstances, to look at our situation and discount it. To blow it off and to sit back and think, you know what, Nick, if you knew my past, if you knew what I did, if you knew how much time I had left or whatever, you know, I can't do much. I can't have an impact. You be seated. Thank you, ma'am. And I was thinking about the life of Jesus and how his ministry started. Because in the church world, we talk a lot, and rightly so, about the ending. We talk a lot about the crucifixion, the fact that he lived a sinless life, he died for us and rose again 3 days later. That's what we celebrate here. We talk a lot about the big. But as I was thinking about his story this week, what hit me was a seemingly insignificant small moment. If you're not familiar with the story, it says that he was led out to the desert from a temptation standpoint. And I don't know what day it was, day 30, day 38, day 39 and a half, I have no clue. But it just says Satan shows up and is like, hey, Jesus, you're hungry, right? Yes, I'm starving. I haven't eaten anything. I haven't drank anything. Hey, you're God. You're God. Turn that rock into bread. Make yourself a sandwich. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no verses against that. I've read the whole Old Testament, Jesus. Okay? There's no verses against that. Just make yourself some food. And I don't know why it was wrong. I have no clue. I don't know if God said, hey, fast 40 days, and that was 38 and a half, and it had been a sin. I have no clue. Here's all I know. In that moment, it seemed so small. It seemed like an insignificant, like, okay, Jesus can walk around and be like, yeah, the worst thing I ever did, yeah, I made bread out of rocks. Oh, whoa, it was me. You know, what a small, insignificant little sin. What a small, insignificant little compromise that would have been. But we know. We're here today. We celebrate Jesus because the small produces the big. And in a moment where Jesus might have been tempted to sit back and go, it's not a big deal, and who cares, and no one's going to find out, and, you know, what's the problem? He understood. In every moment, both big and small, there is way more at stake than what I realize. And so because he was faithful in the insignificant, in the small, we celebrate right now Jesus who stood on the cross and died for us. We have hope. We have grace. We have mercy. We have big things to celebrate because Jesus focused on the small. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much. I pray that you would speak to us. Lord, reveal to us what we need to change, what we need to take seriously, what we need to focus on. Lord, reveal the small in our world, the things that we blow off, that ultimately will have a big impact. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your mercy. Thank you for the resurrection. We love you. Amen. As they pass out the elements, I want to invite you all, if you're here today and you're a Christian, you can partake with us. Also, I want to ask that you would hold off so that we can take them together.
Oh, how I need need your grace more than my words can say. Jesus, I come. Jesus, I come. In all my weaknesses, you are my confidence. Jesus, I come. Jesus, I come. And I will rise, stand redeemed, heaven open over me. To your name, eternally, endless glory I will bring. Oh, what amazing love. We need your cleansing blood. Jesus, I come. Jesus, I come. In every broken place, you are my righteousness. Jesus, I come. Jesus, I come. And I will rise, stand redeemed, heaven open over me. To your name, eternally, endless glory I will bring. And I will rise, stand redeemed, heaven open over me. To your name, eternally, endless glory I will bring.
The greatest moment in human history came out of the greatest tragedy. The resurrection of Jesus that gives us life and hope, that allows us to get up every single day, no matter what our circumstances, no matter what our situation, and believe that there's something better, that the best really could be yet to come, that there's something more out there, came out of something so tragic. And I don't know what you're walking through right now. I don't know if you've got financial problems. I don't know what's blown up. I don't know what you allowed in. I don't know where you're at. I don't know what is going on. What I know is, if you're here, God's not done. He's got something more. That you may despise the beginnings. You may despise going back and starting over and starting fresh and trying it again and trying to overcome that addiction or trying to overcome that problem or trying to start that process again or trying to build that business back up or trying to fix that marriage. I don't know what it is. What I know is the crucifixion. What we celebrate today is our hope. Because that night it says that Jesus, he grabbed a piece of bread. And after 3 years of ministry, he sat with his disciples. It says he broke it. And he showed them this. He said, this is my body. Broken. Sacrificed for you. And y'all don't know it yet, but I'm going to put it back together in 3 days. What was broken, I'm going to redeem. What is broken in your world, God can redeem in a mighty way. What is sick, God can heal. What is messed up, God can fix. But he says, I want you to do this to remind you of the beginning of the process. The process of redemption starts not with something big, but with something small where Jesus just said, I'm yours, God, do with me what you want. And they broke him. And it's so easy for us to forget that. It's so easy for us to walk away from God. It's so easy for us to allow small, seemingly insignificant standardizations of deviations into our world that become normal. And we forget it. We walk away from God. And Jesus says, no, I'm going to give you a sacrament to remind you of my love for you, to remind you of the genesis of the whole thing, that your life, your freedom, your hope, your grace, your mercy is found in me, not in your works. It never was, but in his works. He says, you're going to forget that. So do this in remembrance of me. A few moments later, he grabs a cup. He says, this is my blood, sacrificially shed for you, so that you would have grace, so that you would have freedom, so you would have all of those things. I'm going to die for you because I love you, because you're never too far gone, because it's never too broken, because it's never too messed up, because it's never too far from me. Wherever you are at here today, I want you to know, not because I say it, because Jesus said it, that he came here to save you from your sins so that you could walk in freedom. Romans 6 talks about the wages of sin and death, but the free gift of God is eternal life. He died for you. Listen, do this in remembrance of me. Would you all stand with me? This week, here's my hope. My hope is that you would walk with a boldness as you leave here today, with a confidence that your Savior has died for you, that the best really is yet to come, that there is a future, and what is broken, what is messed up, what is sick, what is dying, God died for to redeem it. And there's a future, but what it takes is small steps. Stop worrying about the big things. Stop worrying about the massive things and start walking through the daily things, the small things, the insignificant things, and allow God to speak to you, to redeem you, to uplift you so that you can become who God called you to be. Have an amazing week. God bless. We'll see you next Sunday.